In the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't forget to put on your microphones. Right, Val? You like that? And I want to tell everybody, I have to leave at 4:30. It's my wife's birthday. I've got to show up, or I'll be in the doghouse. But if we're still here at 4:30, because I think the agenda is going to be a little bit shorter today. Jim will be here. I will take the minutes. We're still looking for a secretary. Don't all jump at once. Well, anyway, we're covered for today. I'm going to use Jim's format here and just, cover nice, very nice format. And so we're covered for today. We'll just keep talking about this, rotating it. Maybe over the holidays, some of you will think about it. And if you're anxious, just let me know. Send me an email. I won't hold my breath, but anyway, we'll just continue to rotate this
Like
somehow.
I say, who's missing from here?
Yeah, we ought to
We
pick on the
should
people who
nominate
didn't show
somebody
up.
today.
All right, so you have the agenda, and the batting order is going to be different. We have the school listed here, the schools, but they're not going to be coming today, right?
I don't believe they come.
Yeah, okay. And we can do that next time. And then we have police, fire, information technology won't be coming today, nor highway, so it'll be police, fire, and town hall. But we're going to have the fire departments come first because these gentlemen need to be someplace else very shortly. I do want to talk about the next meeting, though. Now, this meeting on December 7th today is a little bit out of the ordinary, as we discussed before. So we would normally be having our meeting on December the 14th next week, and we're not. This is it for 2022. The first Wednesday, or rather 2 Wednesdays from December 21st is Wednesday, January the 4th. It's the first Wednesday in 2023. So that's the next logical, if we keep the same sequence that we've had, that would be the next day. So I'll pick that unless there's opposition. We'll go with January 4th, 2023. I can't believe 23. 3:30. And we changed the time so that more people will show up, but maybe it's going to take a while. But anyway, that's it. So thank you for being here. So first we'll invite the fire chief and Dan, deputy, to come on up and talk about what they want to talk about. We have that in our files here, so we'll,
I'm going to doing the presentation slightly different. Last year I had a relatively thick packet of paper for everybody, but I'm under this understanding that everybody has a digital copy of our plan. So in the interest of wasting paper, I opted to not do that. I do have some papers, some photos to support our request to pass around. But I want to start by thanking the committee and the taxpayers for last year's capital award, $350,000 for Scott Pax.
yeah.
That was excellent. That was huge for us. We continue to work hard to find outside sources of funding. Over the last year or so, we've secured, with the help of the town administrator, the ARPA committee, and the federal Simpsons to Firefighter grant, we've secured over $800,000 in outside sources of funding. As a result, we're able to cross off priorities 1 and 2, which is another pickup truck and 2 SUVs. And we are also able to return a fair amount of money out of the capital award that we were given last year. It's going to be in the area of 150 to 170 when all the bills are total. As I explained last year, we actually need a 50 packs. We thought that was a pretty hefty presentation and request to present to the committee, so we opted for 35. We're able to replace everything. It's perfect. It couldn't have worked out any better. Just to touch on AFG, we're going to continue this year. We are going to be asking for a vehicle this year. We are going to request through AFG for a vehicle. But again, I want to emphasize how hard it is to get that award. They received 8,208 applications last session. That was $2.1 billion in requests. They only award about 414,000. 25% gets rejected, 6,000, you don't get an award. We were very fortunate to be one of the 2,000 to get the Scott Pack. Out of that number, they only typically award 150 vehicle awards nationwide. And their primary awards are given for unsafe vehicles, or what I would call like a backyard build. These very, very rural towns take an old army truck, they throw a tank of water on it, some hose. There's built to no kind of, standard. So those usually get priority. We're not in that situation, thankfully. But a lot of what we've done over the last several years is really looking forward, how we can save money for the taxpayers and keep our department current. Having said that, we do have a gear grant pending. We have a radio grant pending. That's roughly over $25,000. We're very confident that we're going to get those awards. So that's something that we would normally bring to capital for gear. Gear is about $5,000 a set. But through our rotation out of the operating fund and through these grants that come out through DFS, we're able to offset some money. So my point is, obviously, we're doing our due diligence on our end to put less of a burden on the town.
Great.
So,
Appreciate it.
and we'll continue to do that. So, having skipped priorities 1 and 2, I want to talk a little bit about adding a brush truck to our fleet. So, if you had a chance to read through, and if you didn't, I will summarize very briefly. I know it was a pretty extensive presentation here. But currently, as you know, Westport is 64 square miles. I knew from the assessor's office about 40-something% was wildland space. We've had a lot of droughts in the last several years. Brush fires, we answer between burning complaints, illegal burns, brush fires, about 150 calls out of the 600 or so fire calls that we do a year. So it's a decent call volume. We have 1 truck currently in our fleet. So the standard is about 25 years you replace a piece of fire apparatus. And because we do a pretty good job taking care of vehicles, we're able to stretch the lifespan of those vehicles. The forestry truck that we have now is 23 years old. It's still in great condition. We're gonna get a lot more years out of that. But what we did have to do, because the town is so big, and because so often our stations, they're either on calls, both stations are out right now, and they're unstaffed, there are times when the south end has no brush fire truck. So what we had to do was we had to take a structural truck, which is engine 2, which is a 1997. It's 26 years old. It is due for replacement, but again, it's in relatively good shape. I think we've got a few more years out of it. But we had to take this truck and outfit it as a brush truck. It has no 4-wheel drive capabilities. It is extremely heavy. It carries 1,000 gallons of water as opposed to 250 to 500. So I'll just pass this around so you can see what a brush truck looks like. And a structural truck, and you can see the difference in size and why they're not appropriate for a woods fire, laneways, things like that. So as you guys are probably well aware of, inflation is a serious concern. Fire engines are approaching $900,000 in cost. A brush truck is about $300, $350. Long term, we have an engine 5, which is a 94, it's 29 years old. That was stationed in Foxborough, went to the city of Fall River, and now is in the town of Westport. What I would like to do eventually, when engine 5 is due to retire, which is very soon, is put engine 2 back where it belongs as a reserve piece for structural trucks, and then have a new brush truck. So we're not reducing the number of vehicles in our fleet, but we're reducing the size. Okay, so with size comes more maintenance, oil change, more fuel consumption, the ability of what the truck can and can't do. There are laneways in town with houses down the end that we cannot get trucks of structural size into. That's where actually a brush truck can be considered a fast attack truck and can be used for those type of laneways in the event of a structure fire. So it can be multi-purpose. So that's why we're requesting $350 for the brush truck. It's again looking forward, repurposing engine 2 back to what it's designed for, which is a structural truck. And we're on borrowed time definitely with engine 5. So that's, any questions on brush trucks? No, that's straightforward. So the next one is the heating system at Station 2. This is a $30,000 request. It's nothing, it's still $30,000, but it's nothing earth-shattering. The heating system at Station 2 was put in 1986, I believe, when the station was converted from oil to natural gas. It's antiquated, it's inefficient. Every heating season, we have a call out for service. And at some point, it's not going to be fixable. That comes from our plumber. There's only so much more he can do to keep this going together. So I'll pass around some photos there. So just a little bit of, so everybody has an understanding, there's a couple of zones. One is the living quarters, and then one is the Apparatus Bay 1, which is the original Apparatus Bay. And the other side is Apparatus Bay 2, which is the addition that was put on when Chief Mata was chief. I don't remember how long ago, but fairly new. There are 2 heating units in there. One we never turn on. We believe we can repurpose that and move it to Apparatus Bay 1, so a little bit of cost savings. That was after consulting with 2 plumbers. They think it's more than enough. So again, our effort to try and save some money and offset costs. You'll see here, so we do at times have to stand on top of our fire trucks to repack hose. The heating system that we have in the Apparatus Bay is an open fan. We can't get a grate to cover it.
It's a forced hot water system, so the furnace basically pumps hot water throughout the station for living quarters and the apparatus room.
So in addition to being inexpensive, hard to find pots, there's a real danger there, and that's legit. We make sure that the switch is turned off, we make sure that the heat is turned off. But if somebody stands up into that fan, I mean, when I was a lieutenant up there, it was like, it freaked me out, you know, there's no other way to put it, you don't think about it, and sometimes you're up there packing hose, guys, hey Bob, here's the nozzle, he stands up, you'll see, it's real. So there's definitely a danger there. You'll see here, there's a lot of rust. You'll notice the components are antiquated and old. What we'd like to do is, we also have a hot water heater up there. We rent it through Liberty Utilities. It's a relatively inexpensive monthly cost. It's not a big deal, but we replace it frequently. After talking to 2 different plumbers, there is a more modern stainless steel system that we can get that will do the heat and hot water, so we can eliminate the rental fee, we can eliminate the replacement, we can get something more reliable. The other option, our apparatus bay would have to get extremely cold for the trucks to freeze, but there is medication on there that's temperature controlled. So if we lose heat, and it's always on a Saturday, right? It's always on a Sunday when you can't get the plumber there. To have the ambulance be in an apparatus bay where the temperature's 30, 40 degrees, not running, usually when it's out in the elements, the truck's running, the heat's on, so the medications are staying at the temperature they need to be at. So there's some concerns there about breakdown and failure, and when since been addressed, but when I put in the request, we actually had a call out for service on the heating system. It wasn't working at the time. They needed to replace a circulator valve, I think it was. And that's almost, we actually have the guys turn on the heat before it gets too cold just to make sure it's running. It's literally part of our fall to winter conversion because we know there's going to be a problem. So 37 years old is the system. So we're looking for $30,000 to replace that. And then our final request, again, to prioritize these is kind of hard because they're all kind of important. I just want to bring up again, last year we presented the exterior siding at Station 1. I know it's a new building, it's 12, 13 years old. 13 years old, same age as my daughter, 13. And it was suggested by one of the committee members that we maybe replace one side at a time out of the operating budget. That actually sounds like a really good plan, but as we haven't been able to add any money to our operating budget to do any of that work. And we're not talking about a couple thousand, we're talking about probably 10,000 per side, give or take what they find. So it's something we really got to look at. I said it last year, I'll say it again, I maintain my house well. I realize that if you don't maintain your property, it's only going to cost you more down the road. We're going to be dealing with rotting wood, rotting sheathing, things like that. Selectman Valcott was here last year, he's a building expert. He had a lot of good advice and comments, but again, we need funding to make that happen. And I think last year our request was 30. I bumped up to 50 after talking with the guy that gave us the cost last year, and he said, well, what do you want me to tell you? Labor's up, I can't find help, prices are up. He goes, 50 grand's a fair price. Now, again, we haven't shopped around, that's the number he threw at us. If we can do it cheaper, obviously, we would. But it's something we really need to consider. I would even be open to maybe not replacing it with wooden shingles and something that'll last us a little bit longer, but I know we want to have a nice, presentable building. But there may be other options that we can look at, re-siding it all together with something that'll hold up better. So those are our 3 requests. They're all a priority. The heating system is certainly important.
Just one comment on the heating system. About 6 years ago, I'm not sure if you remember, our Briggs Road fire station well was contaminated with salt because it's basically 10 feet off of Route 88. And that used to be a town highway yard before the station was built. They used to have all salt there. So the station was contaminated. The well was contaminated with salt. We had to put a new well in. But the salt that basically goes through the heating system basically is corroding it out. It's a new well now, it's not contaminated anymore, but the problem is the corrosion is continuing because that's why you look at the pictures there and you see all the corrosion on the
Yeah.
pipes. Basically, because of the salt that was in the system for years.
Pretty
Okay.
obvious, yeah. Well, questions for the gentleman here today on any of these items? They're all reasonable, I think, and we certainly will give them strong consideration. What we do, as you know, is this is the early part where we just go through, we don't come to any conclusions. Everybody presents, and we line it up. It's a little bit like a triage process, and then somewhere along the way, we ask, how much money do we have? And free cash being the primary source of these. Are there any of these that could qualify for, and I should know this, ARPA?
I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
Definitely not the brush truck. I can't really make up an EMS component on
Yeah.
that one. If I tried, I really probably couldn't. On the brush truck, we are talking with Bulldog Fire Apparatus on Route 6. It's a new company in town, so
Okay.
they are a local vendor. We'd be putting money back into the local economy. So it's,
Mhm.
if we would do so, that's definitely who we'd be looking at dealing
Okay.
with. Providing we aware of them. They're good. They build a good product and they have a good service record. We'd of course, talk with all of our vendors, but it would be nice to have somebody right in town if something was wrong with the truck, right
That's
up the road, and
always
they're already familiar with it,
Yeah, yeah,
Our
okay.
ambulance, we have to drive to Attleboro and things like
Much
that, so.
easier for service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They get the parts.
It's a win-win.
So that is,
Well, thank you. Any other questions before they go?
No.
Very detailed.
Thank you, gentlemen.
all right.
Be well.
Thank
Hope
you.
get
As
your-
always, a very good presentation.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't actually know I was gonna be here until Monday, so I would've normally put together something a little bit more in-depth, but you guys probably heard enough of me ramble. He's heard enough from me this year anyway, I think. But no, we've really come a long ways, and this ARPA money has been huge.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really gonna help the fire department along
Yep.
for
That's
a
great.
number of
Helps the
years.
town.
So, and, town as well.
Yeah, no question.
So thank you again for your
Good.
help and
Thank
your
you.
support.
Thank you.
Well, keep dry in this rainstorm. It'll end.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, that was good, and just making a couple of notes here. Okay, the police are not presenting in person tonight, right?
They're not presenting in person, no.
Okay, let's go and talk about the police. There's only one item here. Let me just get to it in my,
Requesting $60,000 for one police cruiser.
yeah, usually we see a couple or three, but they, ARPA,
Funded two with the ARPA funding.
yeah, that was very helpful.
Only two?
There was,
Was it three? I thought it was two, but
well, I'm pretty sure it was two, but there was a reason why it wasn't three, and I can't remember what we talked about. It was,
we had funded a few last year through, I think we had funded three through this committee.
yeah,
Two through this committee and then another two through ARPA, so they're actually ahead of the game a little bit.
yeah, maybe that's just the way it flowed, that because of ARPA, that we were able to replace some. Why it was, I don't know why it was in three, but it's fine with me. I'm not gonna raise that as an issue.
No.
So anyway, we have it right here, $60,000. These cars, cruisers, they put a lot of miles on them, and we've had a lot of information in that regard. So this particular vehicle is, I don't know exactly, it says over 150 to 200,000 miles, but it's probably up there. I think we have a list somewhere. I don't have it here. But anyway, and they're not cheap. But this time it's only one, so that's a good thing. And any comments, questions, thoughts? It's pretty cut and dry, pretty obvious. We'll put it in the hopper. It's something that we want our police to have vehicles, and happy that we only have a fairly modest request this year. Okay. All right. We might be done by 4:30 here. The next item on the agenda, since the others don't have the schools, we won't be having IT nor the highway, is Town Hall. Jim, lead us into that discussion, if you would.
Sure, so we have a couple of requests in for town hall. I guess the first one is we're looking for $150,000 for electrical upgrades. We have $125,000 in addition to that to improvements to the building outside. I have requested this funding through CPC, the public hearing I think next week or the week after the CPC. And the reason for this is we've applied for a $500,000 grant with Green Communities to replace the heating and lack of air conditioning in this building. In addition to the $500,000 grant, there's a $100,000 incentive from the utility company, and then an additional $20,000 from the state as an incentive, I believe. So it's total of almost $620,000 in grant funding and incentives. But in order to do that, we need a 25% match of the $500,000, which is $125,000. We're looking to use that match for upgrades to the electrical service, which they would need in order to install these. We also need it here in town anyway. All these rooms are, the outlets are overused, they're not grounded properly, they're outdated. I mean, you go into any office and there's spaghetti wires through each power strip, and popping a few of the breakers over the years, but they just need to be done.
Sure. Well, you have safety concerns too at some point.
Yeah.
obviously.
And those were noted when they did the last
You all-
insurance inspection
I would
Attest to
agree,
that.
yes.
and fire department inspection last year, so we changed the number of the extension cords to make them compliant, but they're still not ideal and they need to be upgraded. You can just look in this room, the wires going around, I mean, it's,
A lot of wires.
It's everywhere.
I've noticed.
So it's $150,000 for the electrical upgrades, and then I believe it was $125,000, and that was for the exterior of the building, mainly to do the trim work, the painting services. A lot of that wood, not a lot, but some of that wood has rotted. And it's messy looking. I look at the fire station shingles and you look at this building and this building in white, it's poor. I mean, you
Yeah.
get so used to seeing it that you don't always see it every day, but even the accessibility issue coming in, the railing down here is broken, it's not attached to the ground anymore, so that would be included in the additional funding. We took the air conditioner out of this window a couple of months ago, and the windowsill is all rotted, so the water would get inside,
Yeah.
run down
Yeah.
between the bricks and
You know how that is.
the interior, so it's time to just fix some of these things up. So that was that request. The second request was $175,000 for the town hall parking lot, which is in terrible shape. It's been in poor shape for a long time, and it needs to get fixed. This wouldn't be the entire parking lot going out to the highway department, it would just be the front and back up, maybe just a little past this garage here. But it needs to be done, it's just, it's puddling in different areas, there's potholes, it's breaking up.
Yeah, I noticed that on the way in tonight in the rain, you get the puddles there and cracks.
And the third item is $45,000 for a maintenance truck, a maintenance vehicle for staff here that services this building, the annex. They also go up to the library on occasion. But he doesn't have a vehicle anymore, his vehicle was deemed unsafe. We sent it over to the highway department to get repairs for brakes, and put it up on the lift, and they sent me pictures, and the whole bottom was just rotted out.
Oh, yeah.
It's not drivable.
Yeah.
We tried to use the old fire plow truck, but they put that up on the lift, and as the fire department said, it wasn't roadworthy, and it wasn't, so we couldn't use that. We don't really have an option besides that. We're using the electric vehicle, which is, you can't even bring over rolls of paper towels and toilet paper to the annex. It just doesn't fit. It brings a lot of the trash from this building to the transfer station.
Can you get a bigger electrical vehicle, like a pickup truck or something?
You know, I wouldn't rule it out, but the thought is if we could get one truck, it could possibly be used by two. The maintenance person could use it in the mornings. Ralph, the building inspector, he's been using an electrical vehicle, but he can't go on a lot of the sites with the electrical vehicle. If he had a truck, he usually does his inspections in the afternoon. They could kind of swap off on that possibly. Right now, the maintenance guy is using the electric vehicle, and Ralph is using his own vehicle, but he puts a lot of miles on it, and it's getting
Yeah.
expensive, so, overall, I think we could not save money, but we could reduce some of the costs by getting at least one truck.
But I'm serious, it sounded like a joke, but I was serious about the pickup, that electrical or hybrid one. There are some out there. I think Ford makes a hybrid. But if we could get one of those and have it subsidized by the state through the green communities, wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I will check with Kathy, our energy consultant, and see if there's any funding available for that.
Yeah, that would, I mentioned hybrid because I don't know if that makes it qualify as an electric vehicle, or does the vehicle have to be all electric as opposed to hybrid and electric.
I don't know, but I can
Yeah,
check.
yeah. Just a thought to see if we can find another source of funds. But this truck thing has come up a lot. I was at the transfer station one day, probably 2 years ago, and Wayne pulled up and he said, "Dick, I want to show you my truck." I said, "It looks fine to me." He says, "No, this truck is hurting." He opens up the front door, there's a hole there, and you get fumes coming in. I said, "I think I agree. We gotta get this done one of these years. We can't wait forever. This is a hazard."
And you don't always realize how important it is until it's gone, but even little things like moving the voting machines up to the precincts,
Yeah,
we didn't have
yeah.
to be able to do it, it's needed.
Any questions for Jim about the truck, which is kind of
We need it.
cut and dried, really, isn't it? All right, and this one is only 45,000. That's not too bad, based on other things we see here. All right, well, again, today we don't have to make a decision on this. We'll put it in the hopper, we'll line it up, we'll have further discussion when we go to the second round here after everybody's presented. And anything else that relates to the town hall?
No.
Okay, well,
Just to put it out there, it's not on the list, but we talked about heating and air conditioning systems over the annex. Heating systems over there, we had a lot of trouble this year. We got to upgrade the expansion tank. We've had Samco over there at least a dozen times this year. Board of Health is without heat for about a week. Right now, the north side of the building on the first floor is without heat. The south side was without heat for a day or two. It's in the gym, the air conditioning units in the gym were leaking. And I think that was just a blocked drain pipe.
Yeah.
But, they're getting tired and they're gonna have to be replaced in the very near future.
Okay. All right, well, that concludes the batting order for today. I assume that these departments that weren't here today might come next time. We'll let them know.
Yes.
Information technology is important because we've been discussing that, as you know, the need for new software. Anyway, now the next item on the agenda is topics not reasonably anticipated. We don't really have any, but here we can talk about a few things that we hadn't scheduled. We did get a copy of that list from Jim, the Excel spreadsheet showing the approvals. I thought that was pretty good. So, do we need to put that on the agenda for discussion, or is that simply for background?
It's just background, if somebody wants to discuss it, we can certainly.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of information on there. I started going through it, and it looks good. Okay, the next item is to approve the minutes of November the 30th. These were Jim's minutes. I'm not suggesting you should approve them just because they're Jim's minutes, but they were nicely done. This is the November 30th meeting, of course, a week ago only. And any questions, comments, discussion, or?
I changed it, yeah, Mary already picked up a couple of things, I
Cool.
did correct the date and finance representative or titles.
The date?
Those have been corrected on your copy.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I thought it was November 30th. Okay, so these are corrected, and that's fine. I didn't see anything.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve, I hear. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Let me just, Melissa Infield. write that down. I want to do as good a job of taking minutes as Jim did here. Any further discussion on these minutes? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. Well, that's it. This was a quicker meeting than I thought. My wife will be very happy about that, and I'm very happy about that. So again, we'll meet again in 2023. I can't believe I'm saying that. We'll double check that date, but it looks like that's the right date. That's the one that fits normally into the pattern of every other week. And it would be 3:30, and we'll try to get the full complement here. You know, if these people don't show up, they may end up being secretary, you know, that could
I
happen.
think that's a good idea.
I think that's, yeah, more, think about that over the holidays. And wish you and your families a great holiday, and we'll see you around. A motion to adjourn, do I,
Second?
motion is made and seconded. In the absence of any opposition, the motion is declared valid and having passed.